back to what I think is part 8 of the Sci-Fi Crate tutorials. This is Lauren Kimball for ANI 150, and we're in the process of laying out UV maps inside of Maya. Now, in previous exercise, we modeled and UV mapped a die and a can, and we used this 1-to-1 texture space. Okay, so I know some of you were wondering why that matters. Why is it when you've got like 10 to 10 to so many different squares, why we have to keep it at this one space? Well, Maya interprets these other spaces as like a tile, as something that's tiling, it's repeating, so it really is only paying attention to this space unless you activate UDIMs. UDIMs, U-dimension, it's the idea of going and treating these other tiles like individual one-to-one spaces. And that's what we're going to do today, because the benefit of that, of having multiple spaces, instead of taking all these shells and cramming them into one space, you're able to take different pieces, like maybe we would take just the side, for instance, and put it in its own tile, etc., etc., etc. And the reason you'd want to do that is because this square represents the resolution of your texture map. So in this case, we're using 2K texture map, which is 2048 by 2048. And that would be all the resolution that we'd have to use, just that 2048 by 2048, which would mean a lot of these surfaces would become quite small in order to fit there. And that's not ideal. We want to have more resolution so that we can have more detailed textures without getting some sort of like fuzzy or pixelated results. So that's why we have UDIMs, where we're able to use all of these different texture squares up and up and up as high as we want to go. And each of these texture squares will be named after the asset, so these will all still be the crate's UV map squares, but they'll be named. So this will be like, I want to say this is going to be like 1001, 1002, 1003, and the reason they use 1000 as the suffix when they are identifying these squares is because it just adds frame padding to the naming. Alright, so let's go ahead and start packing some of these. Now, it's not just as simple of sticking something in the square and making sure it fits. Instead, what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to make sure that we are paying attention to textile density. So, oh boy, how do we describe that? Textiles. So, when you're working in like Photoshop, you know that the more pixels you have, the higher the resolution is on your image, right? Well, textiles are basically containers of pixels. It's each of these shells are going to be measured in the amount of pixel information they can hold in them. And textile density, oftentimes, like if you're working for a studio, they might tell you what they want as far as the textile density, so they'll give you a number. In this case, I'm going to just try to determine my textile density based on the textile density of one of the biggest pieces, namely this piece right here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to grab it and I'm going to press Control L to lay it out. It's going to take a moment because I added all of that. Ooh, let me undo. Let me shift right click and go to my layout, because there's something I forgot about that rotate. Let me go edit, reset settings, so everything is reset. Pack settings, I want 2048. I don't want anything stacked together, packed, not overlapping. Don't want anything rotated, translate only, 2048. I do want shell padding, I want 10 at least. That way we don't have anything bleeding over the edge of a tile, and we don't have anything bleeding over another shell. Very important when baking maps. Distribute to the 1-to-1 space, into the full square, keep everything uniformed. Let's do this. Boom. There we go. So when I zoom in on this, you can see that there's about 10 pixels separating the edge of our shell from the edge of our tile. Awesome. And look up here, there's another 10 pixels separating the two shells. That's wonderful use of the layout tool. So this is the most space that I could possibly get for this big section of my crate. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over here to my UV toolkit, collapse the arrange and layout, and I'm going to go to, where does this exist? I think it's under transform. Yep, it's under transform. At the very bottom of the transform, down here under tools, you'll see textile density. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on this shell and I'm going to say get. And it tells me I have a textile density of about 410. Let's go ahead and just set it to 400. That way we have a little bit in case, oh, do I do 410? Is there going to be a piece that's bigger than this? I don't think so. So yeah, let's go ahead and just keep it at 410. So I'm going to click this piece again. I'm going to grab it. It's going to say 410, and I could just go in and type 410. Make it easy. And I'm going to grab all of these pieces, and I'm going to say set. Now it's important you set the map size to 2048 because otherwise it's going to give you 400 textile density in a different map size. So I should have mentioned mine's already preset to 2048, and what we have is nothing really changed with this, but you'll notice some of these pieces are overlapping now. They've gotten a little bit bigger. We are just making sure that everything has the same density. Why does that matter? It matters because if you have something that is bigger than something else, like for example, let's just take the top of this crate and let's take a look at the checkerboards. Notice that the checkerboards now match uniformly. There are no giant texture boards anywhere on this. Let's take this lid and let's just shrink it down, okay? And notice that there are fewer squares that can fit into this piece. If I were to go in and start painting texture on this crate, like I was in Substance Painter, which allows you to just have fun, like you can go in and splash mud on your crate, you can use all sorts of the cool custom brushes we make in Photoshop. You can make similar brushes in Substance Painter, and you're just going around painting right on your model. And then when you start painting the lid, all of a sudden that texture becomes really big, really pixelated, because that has a different textile density than the rest of your map. It's really important that you keep everything consistent in your scene. Now, that doesn't mean that there are never any instances where you would purposely change the textile density. For example, if you have a human character, the face is something that you're going to want to have the most textile density. So you might take a face of a model and just blow it up so that it takes up one whole shell all by itself. Or sometimes I've seen certain modelers who go in and will actually cut up the face so that maybe cut their face into quadrants. I personally don't like doing that because then there's more seams to deal with, but I totally respect why they do it. If you're trying to get that hyper realistic, super crazy dense texture mesh, then yeah, you might want to chop it up that way. Anyway, all that to say, there are instances where some things are more important than others, and you're going to want to have a little bit more texture, textile difference from your shells, but for something like this is ideal. This is what we're going to want. Okay, so we've selected everything. We had this set to 400. We had the map size set to 2048, and we clicked set, and that set everything here to 410. So let's go ahead and grab this side of the crate here. So this should grab both shells. Oh, look at that. I had the wrong top attached. My bad. This is the one that goes to this. Huh, silly me. Let me grab both of these and press Control L. Shouldn't matter because this was how I already packed it. I'm going to grab this and I'm going to go to my tools and I'm going to go to my move tool here. And I'm going to click on Step Snap on. And I'm going to set the Step Snap to 1. And now when I move this over, it snaps one whole tile, which is cool. That's what we want right now. So I'm going to actually click off of this, turn off my step snap because I don't want it to stay on. And I want to grab these two here and go ahead and pack them in. So I'm going to grab them and press Control L. And sometimes you have to press it more than once. Or maybe I do because my keyboard is just being obnoxious. So I'm going to grab both these shells now and I'll reactivate my stepped key here, my step snap, and move these over. So these are two fully packed UV tiles. Now I could just easily grab this and lay it out, but I don't want to do that. Oops, sorry, I forgot to turn off that step snap. I don't want to just do, come on, I took off the rotate, didn't I? No, step snap rotate is on. There we go, off on the move tool. I don't want to just pack this because if I just pack it, it's going to want to rotate and scale, and if it scales then it changes my textile density. I don't want to do that. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to shift right click and I'm going to go to layout and I'm going to go down to the very bottom and I'm going to say, hey, no scaling. But you are allowed to rotate and translate to fit this into the space as best as you can. Layout. And let's see what happens. Whoa, what on earth happened? Oh, what? What was that? Scale mode off. What did you do? I'm so confused. Let me try resetting my settings. Maybe I did something I didn't know about. Rotation is fine. 2048 is fine. Shell padding, I want 10 on both of these. And I do not want scale on. What? I think I broke it. Clearly that is scaling. Okay. It might be that it just doesn't fit into this shell, which is fine, but, or it's not going to fit nicely into this tile, but that was still really weird. So I'll just pack it myself. Let's see. That was really wild. There we go. So, I mean, you don't need the layout tool. You can pack things yourself. So now when I grab these, how did these get all unorganized? I thought I did a good job with that. Evidently I didn't. Silly, silly. Let me move these up. Grab these two. Rotate this. Move this down. And move this in. Remember, we just need to make sure that it's staying within the tile and it's got a good amount of space around it so that it's not going outside of that tile. Now when I grab all of these, I should be able to grab the entirety of the back of this crate, and it's doing exactly as I wanted it to. Cool. Alright, so now I can grab all of these. I can go over to my move tool here. I can reactivate the step snap, and I can just move these over a tile. And I'm going to go ahead and pack this in. And let's go ahead and turn off that step snap so we don't have to keep messing with it. Move this over. We're trying to keep things within this first tile here, and then this bit here. Alright, cool. So now these are all nice and packed. I can grab them. I'm going to go back over here to the step snap, turn them on again, and move this over. And now let's see what we can do with these pieces. So it'd be kind of nice if I could just fit them both in there. Let's see, I don't think that's going to happen. I think what's going to happen is I'm either going to have a different textile density, or I'm just going to have a tile dedicated to the top and the bottom of my mesh, which, I mean, it's not the end of the world, it's fine. It's just, didn't want to have to deal with that many. Or I could change the textile density so that these are a little smaller. I don't think it really matters. Let's go ahead and just grab all of these, and I'm going to press Control because I don't want that shell, and I'm going to move this over. Now hopefully, oh, let's turn off that move tool. It's going to drive me crazy. Now hopefully I grab this and, I mean, that's pretty fine. So that's the top. And, oh, wouldn't this be fun? What if we just grab all of these and we'll treat it like a sandwich? Let's move these over. Let's step snap on. Let's move these over one tile. Step snap off. And now you've got this shell, which is the bottom. And they're kind of in order from top to bottom now. So you got the top shell, you got the two sides, and or two sides and the two fronts and backs, and then the bottom. Great. Everything's nice and packed. And then we got these bits here. So there's a couple of things we could do here. One thing I could do is chop them up a little bit. So I'm going to grab this, and there's really no nice place to just chop. Maybe here and here, those two corners there. Shift X. And I'm going to go ahead and grab this and do the similar thing, Shift X. And then I'm going to go back to my UV shells and I'm going to rotate this. There we go. Now we can do something called stack similar. So because no one's going to ever look inside the lip of this crate, I could very easily grab these pieces and just go to the very bottom of my tool. So I could turn off transform, arrange and layout, and just say, hey, stack similar. And I don't know why it's not working right now. Let me grab all of these. They should stack. Nope, just this top two did. That's funny. Are these not similar? I guess Maya doesn't think they're similar. No matter, I'm not actually going to stack them that way because I find the normal maps bake a little better. Or maybe this is just my own anecdotal experience. I think they bake a little nicer when you don't have anything stacked. That, and you might have some details pour into the lip of this crate, so who knows. So I'm just going to tuck these in somewhere. Doesn't look like I'm going to be able to tuck them in very easily, so maybe we could just add some more seams. Let's go ahead and chop here and chop here. So Shift X, and now I can grab these and move them over. And then let's go into edge mode again and click, click, Shift X, Shift right click, or I'm sorry, not Shift right click shells. And let's just move these over. I'm going to try rotating this so that they kind of tuck in together, or we could just treat it like a capital I. That works too. Let's bring these down and see where we can tuck them away. All right. I think these fit quite nicely over here. Trying to keep it within the tile. Ooh, that's cutting it a little close. Let's move it a little to the right here. Make sure that there's a gap on both sides. And there is. It's looking pretty good. I'm going to tuck this in a little bit more, just to give us a little more texture space. Let's do the same here. Trying really hard not to scale any of these things because we're trying to keep that textile density consistent. So everything has consistent textile density. Just, yeah, let's make sure this end, yep, nothing's bleeding over the tile. We can take these other pieces and pack them in, these little other pieces that we've chopped up. So let's see, where can we put these? I think this will fit nicely right here. This one fits, does not fit nicely. Let's grab this one. Doesn't really matter what order these pieces are in. As long as there's enough distance between everything, that's really what matters on this. And this one is just going to have to go somewhere else. Maybe we could fit it right here. Yay! So that's nice and packed. Cool. And then you've got these little odds and ends that make up the innermost lip of this crate. And we can just rotate these and just stick them over here. Make sure nothing is overlapping. Nope, nothing seems to be overlapping. And just these little pieces. Alright, and I think everything is packed. Let's make sure. Nothing else tiny hanging out. Nope, that looks good. So these are been mapped. They are ready to go. They take up a total of 6 tiles. Cool. Let's go ahead and stop this here and we'll move on to the next part of the crate.